Are you feeling God's nudge to share your story? Now, if you're not, please don't run away because I think you are going to find what our guest has to share today super helpful. And who knows, God's calling on our lives, he reveals that to us, I firmly believe, in stages. And so you may not know what he's going to want you to do next with the healing that he is bringing you. So our guest today is going to teach us really how to share our stories and tell the stories of what God has done in our lives. I'm so excited for you to get to hear from her. Her name is Emanuela Hall, and I'm going to read a little bit about her for you so you can get an idea for who she is. As a multi-passionate entrepreneur and creative, Emanuela Hall discovered her calling to help leaders become captivating speakers after she witnessed so many struggling to show up on camera in 2020. With a background in theater, yoga, and drama therapy, Emanuela brings a unique approach to the craft of speaking, guiding her clients to connect to their bodies, breath, and spirit in order to confidently embody their presence and tell their stories. As a speaker, speaking coach, and podcast host, Emanuela believes in the power of stories to change the world, and she loves helping others find and share theirs so that they can make the impact they were born to make. Emanuela is a Catholic homeschooling mama of 3 wild boys who loves food and karaoke. She's on a mission to raise the voices of Christ-led leaders. So, friend, regardless of what arena you are in, I firmly believe that what Emanuela has to share with us today is going to bless you and help you in your life. So without further ado, here is Emanuela Hall on abortion recovery for Christian women. If you're tired of living with shame and guilt and want simple steps to heal, find peace, and feel less alone after abortion, you are in the right place. Hey, I'm Brittany, wife, homeschooling mom of 2, abortion recovery coach, and pro-life speaker. I learned the secret of how to find healing and redemption from my past. Spoiler alert, it's Jesus. If you're ready for tactical post-abortion healing tips, biblical truth, and strategies for grieving forward, then this podcast is for you. Let's crack open that Bible and get ready to receive the good news. Hey friend, do you wish that you could move forward from the pain of choosing abortion, but you just feel so alone? I remember what it was like to feel completely isolated. Like I was the only woman who made this choice, and I had to suffer in silence. I thought God had forgotten about me, that I could no longer have a relationship with him because of the choice that I had made. And I felt like a fraud when I would go to church. After I had my first living child, I truly felt like she deserved a much better mom than me. Yet while I knew I needed help, I truly felt like I couldn't tell anybody because this was my deepest and darkest secret. I want you to know that you are not alone. While we suffer in silence, we know that 1 in 4 women will choose abortion at least once by the age of 45. And those statistics tell us that there are millions of women just like us who have made this decision and are suffering in shame and guilt. You do not have to do this alone. I want you to know that healing and wholeness is absolutely possible. I have been able to find freedom and healing in Christ and have never felt more secure in my purpose than I do now. So if you've been praying for a breakthrough, I invite you to come right now to brittanypoppy.com/coaching. Together, we are going to walk through the redemption process so that you can begin to heal your heart. Well, hello everyone. We are back for another episode of the podcast today, and I have a special guest here with me. I'm so excited for you to get to know her and to just get to hear from her. She's really a remarkable person. So, Emanuela, welcome to the podcast.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me, Brittany. It's my total honor and pleasure to be here.
Yes, absolutely. I've been so looking forward to this conversation, and I've just loved getting to know you too over the last year. It's been really fun to connect. So, I would love if you would just take a moment to tell the listeners a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Thank you. Thank you. I love the work that you're doing, and it's the feeling is mutual. Watching your Instagram is like so exciting to me and watching the evolution of it all. So I am currently a embodied speaking coach and a speaker, and I work mainly with entrepreneurs and leaders to help them become captivating speakers, whether that's online, on stages, in the boardroom. And because I believe the better we can speak, the more impact we can make and influence we can have on other people. I'm also a homeschooling mom of three boys. I live in Southern Ontario, Canada, and a few years ago, I wrote and performed my own one woman play, sharing my own stories. And that kind of led me down the path of helping people find their stories and tell them and speak them with confidence. And I know we're going to get into a lot of that today. So, yeah, I'm really excited to be here.
Yes. Oh gosh, that's so awesome. And we have a few things in common, which is really
Mhm.
cool. We're diving into the homeschooling thing. It's definitely been out of my comfort zone, but it's been a lot of fun and so rewarding. And so thank you for sharing all of that. I would love to, if you would just kind of, lead us on the journey of how God really just kind of told you that this is what you were to do. How did he kind of lead you more deeply into this work of helping people share their stories?
So I'm a theater major by trade. I studied acting in New York City and I pursued the stage for a long time. That's always been my first love as a performer and a dancer. And but then I actually was working with older adults. So for about a decade, I was running performing arts programs with older adults in long-term care and retirement homes, and it was super fun. I loved that work, but I had two little boys at home and I started feeling like I didn't want to leave them and go to all these places. And I was trying to think, how can I have an online business? I had no idea how my skills were going to transfer as a performer in the online world. And then lo and behold, in 2020, suddenly everybody was online. And I joined this mastermind for entrepreneurs and coaches, and people were coming to me and saying, I need help with my video. Can you help me speak more confidently? And I started to realize that, like, the voice and speech training I had as an actor and the storytelling that I did, even through sharing my own play, was an asset and something that people just didn't innately have. I think we all sometimes underestimate the gifts that God's given us, and we think, well, it's easy. So who would pay me to do this, right? Because I just naturally am someone who loves to have the microphone and loves to speak. But so many people still have that passion, but they just want to have more of the skills and actually get better at doing it with more confidence and more conviction and more charisma. So that was really when it started in 2020, and there's been some twists and turns along the way. I had a reversion back to my faith, and that really changed a lot of things in my business. So now I mostly work with Christ-led women, entrepreneurs, and leaders. And I think I'm just now finally ready to give God like CEO position and say, you just take this because I've learned in my years of being an entrepreneur that like white knuckling it and trying to control everything and trying to do everything exactly the way people tell you to do it is not always helpful. And sometimes we just need to relax and release and let Lord do what he's going to do with it. So thankfully, through a lot of prayer and honestly slowing down, I've been able to hear more clearly. And I love helping people on the journey of just finding their story at first, because a lot of times we don't even know the stories. Sometimes we've repressed a lot of stories too, or we don't see how those stories have any value. So to kind of unpack all that, and then even just the act of saying it out loud, even if you never go and say it in front of thousands of people or hundreds of people, but just saying it out loud to one person, that in and of itself can be really powerful. So even just to be able to witness people as they speak their stories out loud, and then just become more confident in that, because I think, well, we know the fear of public speaking is 77% of Americans have it. So it is definitely rewarding to see people step into that power.
Yeah, for sure. It's so crazy to hear just how many people that is just such a huge fear for them of sharing something publicly in a speaking setting, especially for people like you and me who that just kind of seems to come a little bit more naturally to. It's not necessarily something that we are, kind of shaking in our boots before we go share, right? So
Mhm.
it's really cool to just see how you help others, overcome that and learn. Like you just said, we repress so many things that, storytelling is such a big part of speaking and sharing. I think that people are so much more captivated by somebody who is sharing a story with them versus just kind of talking at them. So that was really cool. Thank you for sharing all of that.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I just wanted to share this funny thing I read the other day. It was like the number one fear of most people is public speaking, and the second highest fear is death. So that means at a funeral, more people would rather be in the casket than saying the eulogy.
Oh
I
my
mean, it's a bit of a
goodness.
morbid joke, but I think it's pretty funny,
Yeah, no, that's wow. Wow. That puts things into perspective. So people
right?
are really afraid of this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Oh gosh.
shocking.
Yes, yes. So, what are some ways that you help people kind of overcome that fear if they're coming to you and knowing that they have a story to tell, but they're afraid to do it? What are some practical tips that you can give us if that's something that we're struggling with?
First, it's okay to be where you are. Like, it's okay to be afraid. Like we just said, you are not alone. There's most people are afraid of this. So just acknowledging that, like, this is normal. I'm not weird. We don't need to put another label on the fact that we're nervous about it. And a lot of prayer, take baby steps. Like I said, you don't need to suddenly jump up on stage and be like, I'm going to be a speaker and tell the whole world this story. Maybe for you, it just looks like journaling it. Maybe for you, it looks like talking to your best friend. Maybe it looks like talking to a therapist. Maybe it looks like joining some kind of community where you do speak to a few more people, like a healing community or a story writing community. But taking baby steps and being gentle with yourself and knowing that this is not easy work. Like that's why we're afraid of it because it is hard because it requires us to be vulnerable. It requires us to be uninhibited and sharing deeply from the heart is something that this world doesn't do very much of and we're learning how to do it more and more and more and we think it needs to be perfect. I was just reading the scripture today that says be perfect as my father in heaven is perfect when Jesus says that. And it's like, wait a minute, God knows we are sinful. We can't be perfect. But I don't think he means perfect in the way that we think it means perfect, right? So what the world deems as perfect, like you have to eloquently say it exactly in the right inflection and tone. I mean, of course, those skills are going to help you and help your listeners, but don't expect to have them right off the hop, just like anything. If you sat down at a piano and had never been taught how to play it, you might get lucky and be able to figure out Mary Had a Little Lamb, but likely you're going to need to have someone help you learn, maybe read some books or watch some apps, and then practice. This is how we get better. So, first, just acknowledge that this is normal, it's perfectly fine. And then, if you've prayed about it and you do feel like, no, as scary as this is, I do feel like God is really calling me. And let's remember that usually the things that scare us the most are the things that the Lord is calling us to do. He doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. This is why my one-on-one program is actually called because we are being asked to step outside of what's comfortable. We are being asked to lead and to be set apart from the world. So as hard as it is, trust that if the Lord is giving you this desire, then he's going to find a way. He's going to make a way. Maybe it means, like I said, working with somebody who's going to help you. And so what I always tell my clients is just get it all out first. Like just let it fall on the page, whether you're a pen and paper kind of person or you're sitting down at your computer, and don't judge it. Just like let it flow out of you. And don't think about what I'm going to do with this or where it's going to go, but just get it out. And then if you can do that and you feel good, like, okay, I got it out, it's done. You can put it aside. But if you feel like there's still that nudge to share it with more people, to get it out there, then go through it again. And we all have been given different gifts, but we've also been given different ways of expressing our soul. So for me, I love theater, and so I wrote a play. But for you, maybe you're an artist, maybe you're a singer, maybe you just want to write a novel. Like that's the beauty that God gave us the arts to express ourselves in all these different ways, right? And so what ways did you express yourself as a kid? Were you a dancer? Were you yeah, like I said, were you a writer? Were you writing poems? My kids love to like doodle and draw little comic books. Maybe maybe you're gonna make a comic book. Like whatever it is, try not to judge it, but just maybe you want to express it in a way that feels good for you first. And then the last step is, yeah, who would benefit from this story? So first you've done it for yourself, you've healed, then you've kind of expressed it in a way that feels right for you and aligned for you and it excites you and lights you up. And then who could benefit from this story? So who in hearing this would then also maybe heal. And often it's usually the type of person you were before you lived that story or the story you wish you had when you were going through that story. So for me, I my play was all about the struggles of postpartum and dealing with like postpartum anxiety and depression and breastfeeding. And so I wrote the play and shared the words that I wished somebody had said to me in those months. So those are kind of the steps I would walk somebody through.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I think we can look at that from such a biblical lens. I thought of Revelation 12:11, how we overcome the enemy by the blood of the Lamb and the power of our testimony. And just when you talked about how you're sharing it to the person who you needed.
Mhm.
That's really cool. It's just such a testament to how God can use our stories to go help his other children who need his love and kindness. He uses us as vessels. So thank you for that encouragement. I think that the listener is really going to feel encouraged by what you just shared.
Oh, I hope so. And something else we might want to think about is a lot of the times we're afraid to share our stories or even just to speak is because of the messaging we received as children about that. And that can be determined based on our gender, our socioeconomic class, our culture, right? Different messages that we were told if we were told to stay quiet, to not be heard. And so there's also that element of this isn't safe for me because I've been told not to. So a lot of the work happens inside. We have to go back to our inner child or our past self and talk to them and heal those pieces before we can really fully heal and share it with the world too. So it's story writing and storytelling is a whole healing journey for sure. And there's lots of levels. It can go really, really deep.
Yeah, yes. And I think it's so important for the listener to have heard that too, that if they're feeling led to share their story right now, that doesn't mean that they all of a sudden have to go step
Mhm.
one, stage in front of 3,000 people that they don't know.
Yeah.
You talk so much about healing themselves, their inner self first. And that is so huge and so important because we're not going to be able to help other people if we're breaking down on the inside while we're trying to do this work. I think, you shared how you've gotten to a point where you've been able to, surrender this to God and allow him to lead. And that's, what we have to find in ourselves too when we want to share what he's done in our lives instead of just doing what we think the world wants us to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
What is a word of encouragement that you would give right now to a woman listening who she's feeling led to speak, but she doesn't really know how to hear from God on what the next step is? She, is in this space, and we've kind of been talking about this, but what would be like some words of encouragement or some advice that you would give her if she is, just kind of in this space of, I know for sure this is my next step?
So she already knows this is her next step. She's not questioning that piece. So now
Yes.
what? Right.
Hmm.
Okay. So that's what I would say is go back, just write it then.
Hmm.
Sometimes we just get in our own way. And again, we think it has to be perfect. It has to sound a certain way or look a certain way. Or is this going to be a book? Is it going to be an article? Should I make it a movie? Like, let's not judge what it's going to be. Let's just enjoy the process of writing because it should be fun, right? Like it should be not, it's going to be hard, but it should be also lighting you up to share it. If you feel really called, there's probably a little spark inside of you that gets excited when you think about that. Like, wow, what could that look like? And who could that help? And where might this take me? So try to get out of your own way and just sit down and let it pour out of you. Then we go through it with a fine-tooth comb. Most writers, they edit things 5 to 10 times, maybe more. So don't be so stuck on it has to come out perfectly. Just sit down, write, and then start talking about it. Tell people that you're doing this because the doors will open. The Lord will present, like I said, the people who you need to see or connect with, the opportunities. You never know, like your story, Brittany, you could just be at an event and someone's going to say to you, you're going to be speaking at this event next year. Isn't that what happened to you? Similar?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, very
yeah.
similar. Yeah.
And if had you just not listened to that call to just attend that event, and then for some reason God connected you with that person and they put that little seed, planted that seed on your heart, and there you go. So it's really about following the breadcrumbs.
Mm, I love that. Yes. So good. So good.
Mm.
So, how important do you think it is for people to take the first step in like writing their story? Do you think that that's something that they need to like take a lot of extra time, or do you have some steps that you would suggest somebody kind of start with when they sit down to write their story for the first time? That's probably a better question.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
great question. And I understand what you're saying because it can feel really daunting. You're like,
Mhm.
well, like especially if you've lived like me 42 years, like that's a lot of life. Where do I start the story? How far? How in depth? What pieces need to be in there? So what I walk people through, I actually have a course. It's called the Story Course. If you want that, it's walks you through all of the exercises I work on with my clients, but you can do it at your own pace. And basically, it's a lot of different exercise. I get people to go through their entire timeline of their life from like a bird's eye view. And then we draw a picture and we look at the highs and the lows. And usually, the best stories are from when we came from the low and we've gone to the high, right? You go from like where were you before? What did your life look like? Like what was the struggles, the challenges, and then when was that rock bottom moment? Or sometimes it's an aha moment, or it's like you that moment that somebody said something to you and everything changed. Or for me, when I had my reversion and I just heard God say like read the book and I opened the Bible and I started reading it and then things changed, right? But there's all those little steps along the way. So usually there's a big moment and that's the bottom, and then it's the journey back up the mountain, like the journey to get to those highs in our life that okay, and then sometimes we're just coasting and there isn't a valley or a peak, but usually it's from the valley to the mountain that the greatest stories happen. We love hearing those stories because those stories give us hope. So step one, I would say, do a little visualization, visualize your whole life, and then get a pen and paper, draw that diagram of your timeline of your life and label it. And then I go on to other stories like write down everything you've ever overcome. Write down every lesson you've ever learned. And then what are topics and themes that you love talking about? Maybe you're really passionate about health. Maybe you're really passionate about motherhood. Maybe you're really passionate about business. Like, so what are some common themes? And then you'll start to see there's lots of little stories in your life that lead to that, right? So if I was talking to you, Brittany, but this wasn't an abortion recovery podcast, but it was a entrepreneur podcast, I might be choosing different stories to talk about, right?
Yeah.
So it all goes down again to knowing what is your objective here? Who do you want to reach? And which stories in your life are going to help you achieve that objective, are going to help that listener to see the transformation, to have the hope, to nod their head and say, me too, right? Like they want to feel seen. That's why we love stories. That's why we can watch a movie. I always use the analogy of like Star Wars because my I have three boys, so unfortunately I have to watch a lot of Star Wars. I mean, I'm sure there's lots of girls that love Star Wars, but my kids, I never grew up liking it. I was not that kid. And now I'm watching these Star Wars movies and I'm like, they are timeless, like those original ones. And even though I have never been to outer space and I have never met, aliens from other planets, but the fundamental stories of like love, courage, family, all of those themes, it doesn't matter the setting, it matters the human struggle. And so like when I did my play about breastfeeding, I thought, who the heck is going to want to watch this play about breastfeeding? It's very niched, but it turns out even dads who've seen their wives go through it, or people who support women in those times. So it's really about knowing what is the story that God wants, because there's probably lots you could tell, and then narrowing those stories down to the one that you think is going to serve the person that you're being called to help and serve.
That's so powerful and such a great reminder too, because I think a lot of women listening right now think the obvious story that they're being led to share is, their abortion recovery story. And while that is so important to share and so hope filled, they've gone through so many other things in their life that could even relate to their abortion recovery, or probably affected how their abortion recovery process went. So, bringing all of those different pieces in and really analyzing it is the perfect thing to do to really just figure out what unique story God is wanting to share through them. So, thank you for sharing
Yeah.
that. I think that sets it up in such a practical way.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing that to my attention, because there's a couple of things I want to say is your story. The problem that I see sometimes with story work is that we can then get kind of stuck in our story and we can
Hmm.
let that story define us.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're kind of getting to, Brittany, that your abortion story, while it's powerful and can probably help a lot of women, you're more than that. You're more than that
Amen.
story, right?
Hmm.
And the other thing I hear from women like you all the time is that it's really a symptom of other things. So let's get even deeper. Like, let's go past the abortion, beyond the abortion. The abortion was the
Yeah.
symptom of probably some other stories that, again, we maybe haven't really looked at, or, deeply looked at for whatever reasons. And then that led to the abortion. And that's what I've realized from talking to a lot of post-abortive women.
Yes, yes. Thank you for that. I know a lot of women define themselves by their abortions. And so hearing that encouragement from you, I know is going to just be so uplifting for them. So thank you for loving them so well.
Yeah.
And, you just mentioned that you've talked with a lot of post abortive women. So I would love if you would share a little bit more about that and the project that you've been working on.
Yeah, thank you for this space to say that, because I think that's actually how we met.
Yes.
The Lord, for whatever reason, put this on my heart. I'd say a couple years ago, was like, "You're going to write a play about abortion." I was like, "What?" Okay. So, as you know, I haven't had one myself, but I did take the morning after pill twice, and I was supposed to be aborted. My mom was told by several specialists not to have me. So, I don't know if that's why, but for some reason, I just feel really, really called to this mission. I feel like if we're not at least protecting the babies in the womb, then like what else really matters as a society? It's kind of like the fundamental thing that matters. So the Lord put that on my heart, and I was like, well, I can't write a play about it because I haven't lived that experience. And I would be so humbled if I could find people who would share it vulnerably. And I have sat down with, I was telling you, I think about 25 women, well, actually one man, and the rest were women. And that was such a blessing as well. And I mean, I'm open to speaking with women who still like think that was the best decision of their life. It hasn't been the case. I have only spoken with women who are more in your boat, who've already healed and then are able to share. And I'm not surprised by that, because it's hard to, I always say we don't want to share from an open wound, right? We want
Yeah.
to let the scar heal a little bit. It's okay to show emotion. Like emotions are great. We love when people have a bit of a choked up story because it gets us, right? It gets us even more
Yeah.
into it. But if you're not even able to formulate the sentence and you can't even get it out, then maybe you're just not ready to speak it. So I totally understand that a lot of women who are still very much, I was actually just listening to your last episode and you talked about the relief that people feel for like 9 to 10 years. So if you're still kind of in that spot, you're probably not going to talk to me, but I'm open to it. If you're listening and you're like, no, abortions are great, I will have one every day, then let me hear it because I want this play to be non-biased. I have my obvious personal opinion on the matter, but
Yeah.
I want to just illuminate it in the realist way. And what I have seen is, and what I've been told is the dark side, is the
Yeah.
side about, and honestly, I feel like my focus and what God is calling me to share is not even so much, obviously, the loss of life of innocent humans is horrible, but it's the loss of the mother's life too,
Mm.
and the pain of the person who's gone through it, because that is something that I don't think that we are showing enough of in our culture. We're like, oh, aborting a baby is awful, but then the mom gets to go on and have this beautiful, wonderful life. Well, that's actually not happening in a lot
Yeah.
of times. And actually, the mom ends up dying a piece of herself as well. And so
Yeah.
we're not sell this is not helping babies, this is not helping women, this is not helping men, this is not helping families, this is not helping culture, society. It's just death all around for everyone. So
Yeah.
I just hope, my prayer is that this play illuminates just the truth and that you don't get to walk away scot-free and just like, whatever. That's it's a wound that we carry, just like so many things that we do in our life. But that one's a really hard one.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I'm really looking forward to seeing how God kind of transforms that project and how what you come up with, and just really excited to follow along with that. And would love if you would kind of share with the listener where they can follow along with you. So follow along with the play that you're writing, but also your podcast and how to get in touch with you if they're interested in any of the offers that you mentioned.
Oh, thank you, Brittany.
Yeah.
Well, the podcast is the Speaking and Storytelling Podcast. And I'm on Instagram. I haven't been on a lot lately, but I will be back on there soon. It's at Emanuela.Hall. My website is Emanuelahall.com. It's a tricky name, but I've got one M and one L. So, I've had it spelled so many different ways. And yeah, I will send you maybe the link to any of the things that we've chatted about here, and you can find me there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll make sure those are in the show notes. So, listener, if you're listening, as always, you can go to the show notes and follow along with Emanuela. Check out all the things that she mentioned. Emanuela, thank you so much for coming on the show and just for, again, for loving my listeners so well. It's a huge blessing to me to meet people like you who have such compassion for women who are hurting from this particular wound. And anytime I talk to you, I just feel that compassion so much. So thank you for that. And thank you just for all the practical tools and advice you gave us. I'm just so thankful that you came on and that we've connected.
Well, it's been my pleasure too. Thank you for your kind words, Brittany.
Hey, beautiful friend, I hope that you found comfort from today's episode. If so, would you take 30 seconds and leave a written review in Apple Podcast or a starred review wherever you're listening? It truly encourages me to know that this podcast is helping you. Also, if you're looking for more support from other women who have walked the same walk as you, please join us in our free Facebook community, Abortion Recovery for Christian Women. Please know that I pray for you daily and I am here for you. I'll meet you back in a few days for another episode, but until then, take care and God bless.